wonderful scholars. So we're gonna go ahead and get started on our digital cubist portrait. Remember, step number 1 is to add shapes to come up with a simple design. And as we already did in class, we chose a basic design. We got to choose from number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4. If you want to have shapes and lines, choose number 1. If you want to just have geometric shapes, choose number 2. If you want to have organic shapes with a few geometric shapes, choose 3. If you want to have more forms than anything, go ahead and choose 4. You can also have a combination of a lot of these, 1, 2, 4, 1, 4, 2, or 3. Or you can completely ignore these basic designs and create your own. So we're going to go ahead, open a new document, a blank document. And the first thing that you're going to do is, again, come up with a basic design. If you're doing this on a sheet of paper, just remember, the first thing that you're going to do, since it is on a paper and, to avoid erasing so much, as soon as you have your shapes and your design, start labeling what you're going to add inside each of them. When you're doing this on, the digital Sketchpad, you don't really have to label it because it actually takes longer. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First things first, if you want to use shapes, go ahead and click on the shape tool. I'm going to start with a circle. Oh, and before you get started, just remember that your fill has to be at 0%, your outline has to be at 100%, and your width, I highly recommend that you start with like a 2 or a 3, just so that your lines won't be too thick. Once we get to step number 2 and number 3, and we start adding more contrast, more bold lines, then you are more than welcome to change the width. Cut out, make sure it's at a 0, unless you want another circle inside. And just get started. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of number 1 and number 4. Remember, it's also important that we have proportion. So you don't feel forced to have the entire shape fitted all into your paper. You can also crop. One of my favorite tools, as you already know, is the line tool. I'm going to go ahead and choose a 3. And I'm going to start making my lines. Remember, I'm doing design number 1 and design number 4. So the reason why I like something similar to design number 1 is because the lines start coming out, and I feel like that gives it a little bit more of a what do I say? A little bit more of an attitude. It becomes cubism, it becomes more abstract. I'm gonna go ahead and add a cube right in here. So you see how I'm just doing lines, I'm just doing shapes. Please don't stress over this part. You all got this. This is the easiest part. You're just making shapes. You're just making a quick design. If you want to use squares, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and make a square. You can rotate it. You can move it. So again, at the end of the day, it is your design. Move it to wherever you feel makes more sense. I'm going to move it right here. Next, what I want you all to do is go to clip art. And remember, you can either get a clip art that's already here, like the image of a little dog, a cow, or I don't know, whatever it is that you really like. But since this is a portrait that has to do with your interests, with things that represent who you are, I would recommend going back to that one picture that we took in class. And one way that you can upload it is through your phone. Send it to yourself, email it to yourself, and then load it right here on top of clip art. Go ahead and upload your image. I actually had already downloaded mine, so Remember Naruto? He is right there. It's right here, my image. So I told you all, we actually had an assignment where you had to take a picture of things that represent you. And this is what I like to do. When I upload an image, instead of me posting it right away, I like to change the opacity. I don't know if you noticed. It's so dark, right? So what I like to do is I click right here where it says styles. I change the opacity. So that way when I'm tracing on top of my image, I know exactly what shape I want to have it on. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the image of my siblings. I'm going to make this shape much larger. Oops, I'm just going to click select, move it around, and I'm going to put it right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. Remember, one common mistake that I have seen a lot of students do is get so into the details. You do not need to add so many details to the figures. All I'm going to do is start tracing the figures. And not really care about the details or the roundness. Like I keep saying in class, the weirder it is, the better. Because we do not need to be perfect. This is cubism, it's abstraction. You get to be a little bit more playful. When you're tracing, you need to focus more on shapes and not so much on details. Right now, as I'm tracing the faces, I am not going to focus on the details of the face because remember, it's cubism, it's just a representation. Every time you click you are finished, go ahead and click the little check mark. I'm gonna try to do this as fast as I can. Notice how my lines are not as curvy as the dress. Notice how my lines, my shapes are a little bit more abstract. So just keep doing this. Don't worry about making it perfect. All you have to do is somewhat trace if you don't want to draw. Now, if you don't want to trace, you don't have to. This is totally optional. I just feel like this is a faster way to complete this assignment. And you get to be a little bit more precise with what you want to do. You see how it's just geometric shapes? That's what I want you to do. And I'm going to do that with the entire image. I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm actually going to leave this like this so that you can kind of see what I'm referring to. I'm going to grab the image with the select tool, drag it right over here. And right now I want you all to focus on the PS4 controller. I know I have a lot of gamers in this class. In this school year I have a lot of gamers. So I'm going to place the controller right over here. I'm going to get my line tool, same width, same everything. And I'm going to start tracing my controller. Now I saw some really beautiful digital drawings of the controllers, just remember that it does not have to be perfect. So please don't try to make it perfect. Right now I'm going to try to be more abstract. Notice how it's not, my buttons are not perfect, and that's totally fine. Now another thing that you can start doing with this is start abstracting a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here. I'm going to select my image, drag it a little bit more to the top, and I'm going to continue doing this drawing right here. So it could be a little bit distorted, so it will be exactly aligned. Once I move it, I'm going to go ahead and start adding the other side of the controller. And of course, my little painting kind of blocks it, so I'm just going to invent it. So this is what I want you to do to the entire piece. I want you to just start tracing. Then what you can do, if you want to get rid of the picture, you just select on the image, you click on the layer tool, you go all the way down until whenever you see that clip art, and you hide it. And look at that. You could kind of tell that it's a controller, a PS4 controller. Maybe right here I'm going to, instead of tracing the entire keys, I can go ahead and just add like the triangle, the square, the circle, and the X to represent my keys. And just keep adding things like this. And you know, like I said in the past, please don't try to make it perfect. Please don't try to add so many details. This is Cubism. If you look at the arrows, the keys right here, they don't necessarily look like the original, and that's totally fine. It's abstract. It is Cubism. If I wanted to drag this even more, or if I wanted to add more lines to make it even more abstract, I can go ahead and start adding more lines. So if I want to add more shapes right here, I can go ahead and start adding more shapes. So again, your entire piece needs to be completed, needs to be covered. If later on you don't want to use this part, you don't have to. You can just get the crop tool. Remember what I showed you guys last time. And you can just go ahead and crop, keep what you like, get rid of what you dislike. And later on we can even go ahead and start adding the black borders. So I'm going to crop it right over here because I don't want it to be too big either. And I'm going to click apply crop. And there we have it. Now I just have to find at least 4 other items to complete my digital Cubist portrait. Remember, this portrait has to represent either yourself, things that identify who you are, and you need to start cropping. Don't make everything too literal. Secondly, remember, you can add your facial features. If you want to go ahead and add a selfie, or a portrait of yourself, or a portrait of a loved one, you can go ahead, go to the clip art, upload a picture, and start tracing maybe a few important features, just so that you could, you know, let the audience know who that person is. So if you have any questions, any comments, or any concerns, let me know. Remember, this is due on Friday. You got this. Bye, y'all. Hand hugs.